Hello, welcome to our View From series. We are a Swift Business Forum in London, and I'm joined by James Hatch, who is the Director for Cyber Services at BAE Systems. James, thank you for joining me. I want to ask you about cyber threats. So we live in an increasingly interconnected world. Businesses are interconnected amongst each other. Internet of Things is making even houses interconnected with the rest of the world. But this, of course, also gives, unfortunately, very valuable opportunities to hackers. What's the mind frame of banks when looking at this now?
Well, I think there are two big areas of challenge and opportunity that are coming in the industry at the moment. The first is around changes to the market and competition, partly through fintech and things like PSD2 in the European Union. And the second is through the underlying technology itself. And that's really flowing through everything we're doing, not just in the financial sector, but it's completely changing the way in which the world works. And as we become more and more dependent on digital technology, it doesn't just create vulnerabilities, and it's sometimes seen as a bit of a negative thing, but it just changes the way that we need to think about security and for all of our organisations and for all of our businesses, including financial institutions.
So it is important to focus on this and to protect financial institutions and other organizations from cyber threats. My understanding is that perhaps the focus is not so much on this as a priority, but more as maybe an afterthought, depending on how regulators look at it. Is this correct?
Well, I think it is. Afterthought's probably a bit harsh these days. It's definitely moved further forward in the priorities, but the especially larger and longer standing financial institutions tend to have come from quite a control and compliance mindset when dealing with subjects like information security, and so that tends to encourage a thought pattern around what are we supposed to be doing, what are we going to be expected to be doing. And when we're dealing with targeted cyber attacks, and we are now seeing those in bulk on the financial institutions, then you're not dealing with a generic or a baseline attack. What you're dealing with is somebody who's coming after you specifically. So what we're supposed to do, what the standards are, what should we be compliant with, is not a mindset that works well when somebody's coming after you specifically. It's much more important to go looking for the attacks, to go hunting for them, to understand, to be curious about who might be coming after you as a business, and then to focus your activities on that. That involves quite a big change from a policy, control, compliance, testing approach to one where you're moving towards actively defending your business on a day-to-day basis against cyber attacks and all other threats in the digital world.
So perhaps there is a general consensus that things are evolving, but are you positive that they are growing and evolving fast enough to reach a stage where they're focusing on where the threats are coming from, rather than thinking about what does the regulator want from me in this space? I think
it's moving in the right direction. I mean, we're certainly seeing that here today. There was much more of a consensus here today than there has been over the previous events around the need to take that approach to hunting down attacks, to being more on the front foot, and to handling security in a completely different way. And I think that is so. I'm optimistic and concerned at the same time. We need to remember the technology gives us more opportunity as well as the bad guys. It means there's greater potential to automate a lot of routine functions, and it's sometimes in the failure of routine functions that we end up with the holes that attackers can take advantage of. If we can automate that better, if we can reduce the burden, we can fend off the skills crisis by taking advantage of technology better, because at the moment people are very worried about getting access to the skills to be able to defend their organisations. So if we can take advantage of the technology and keep on changing ourselves as fast as the attackers are, then we've got a chance. Now, of course, that is difficult because many of the attackers don't worry about following laws, and they don't worry about compliance regimes.
They do not have a regulator checking over them, do they?
They don't need to write a business case in quite the same way to be able to spend money. So it is a challenge, but I think there's enough innovation going on in the financial sector at the moment that we should start, and the mindset has shifted quite a long way over the last couple of years. That really provides a strong basis to be able to achieve that.
Very good. Thank you so much, and of course, best of luck for your work.
Thank you.